Okay, I'm going to admit it. I'm going to try not to bump my mic, first of all, but I'm going to admit this. I'm in a bit of a mood today. I'm in a mood. I'm what my baby sister would have said. I am PIST when she was narking on me to our parents. Um, I don't know, guys. The Nancy Guthrie situation, where we've apparently got two new notes. Just I'm disgusted by it. I'm disgusted to be a member of the human family. I'm disgusted by apparent behavior that is intended only to um, what's the word that I'm looking for? Uh, extract money out of the pain of others. It kills me. It kills me. And so what I did today, well, kind of what started it off was I read an article in the New York Post that quoted our pal Jen Coffindaffer, and not Jen didn't, but it did. It just made me PIST. It made me so mad. And so I started doing research into the literature, into what causes people to behave this way. And as I dug deeper and deeper and deeper into it, I just got more and more angry. And lucky you get to join me in my anger. What we're going to do today, we're going to read that article from the Post. We are going to get into some of my research. There's another article that I want to share with you on the case. Of course, we've got three questions tonight. We've got some true crime headlines, and which includes Amy Hilliard, Rex Hewerman, an update on the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case, and then I did not forget. I just I did not forget good news. We're going to get to some good news today too, because while we are righteously indignant on behalf of the Guthrie family, we also need to take a breather, get a fresh of breath air, Javi. I need to take too a breath of fresh air and find out what's beautiful in the world, and there's plenty to talk about. So I guess if that's interesting to you, stick with me. This video contains mature themes and discussions intended only for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello there, my friend. Welcome back to another true crime conversation. My name is Gavin. What is yours? Tell me. Go ahead, tell me. And while you're telling me your name, tell me where you're from. I like it when you guys put in the comments where you are watching from. In three questions today, we have a viewer from New Zealand, a Maori friend that has asked a question of me, and I love knowing where you guys are watching from, near and far. I'm here in Western Pennsylvania. I know that some of you are very close. You live right here in my neck of the woods. Some of you are far, far away, and I love finding out where you're from. Okay, what are we talking about tonight? Tonight we are talking about the case of Nancy Guthrie. Quick recap. Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, goes to dinner with family on January 31st, gets dropped off back at her house. She has a bad back. She has a bad ticker. She has a pacemaker. She has heart medication. She is the mother of someone who's rather famous, the Today Show's Savannah Guthrie. And the next day she's expected in church. She does not show. Her congregation, being good folks and being concerned about her because, hey, that's out of the ordinary. Nancy's not here. They reach out to her kiddos. They go over. They find a crime scene. So the last time she was seen was January 31st. Of course, the FBI released video of a nefarious individual. I was about to say individuals. I think that more than one person was involved in this. Curious what you think about that. But the FBI has released some videos and some still footage from these videos of this person They believe that Nancy Guthrie was taken sometime in the early morning hours around 2:30 a.m. from her Catalina Foothills home outside of Tucson, Arizona. She's not been seen since. Now, there has been stumbling, there has been bumbling, there have been press conferences, there have been press junkets, mostly by this guy, the sheriff of Pima County there, Chris Nanos. We all have our opinions about him. We know that the sheriff's office and the FBI are involved in the search for Mrs. Guthrie. But being 84 years old, hope that she is, and being a heart patient, she left her heart medication behind. I shouldn't say she didn't leave it behind. Her abductors left it behind. Anyway, hope is not all lost. Hope is not all lost. She could be out there alive. Now, recently, as you guys know, well, throughout this whole ordeal, there have been multiple messages from alleged ransomers asking for money to from the Guthrie family in exchange for telling them where she is. 2 more have come recently through TMZ. They have claimed they've been contradicting, right? Yeah, I saw her alive. No, she's dead, right? And anyway, I think actually, you know what? I see a comment saying mostly a bunch of BS, and I think that is correct. And that is the thing that makes me the most angry, is that I think it is a bunch of BS. And why do people behave this way? We're going to get into it. We're going to have a long conversation about it tonight based on the psychological literature that I have been reading. As a layperson, I don't want you guys to believe that I'm some sort of like educated a psychologist with bona fides. I am not any of that, but I do read English pretty darn well. I talk good. I read good. I think anyway, and I'm starting to understand the answer to the age-old question, what the devil, man? That's my age-old question, okay? So let's start where I started, getting all angry, right over here in an article in the New York Post by Patrick Riley. This is just going to be our introduction, okay? The headline reads, Nancy Guthrie ransom notes exposes sick plot against family. Ex-FBI agent claims. Isn't that a double plural? Shouldn't that be ransom notes expose? Nancy Guthrie ransom notes expose? It doesn't matter. That's just another thing for me to be angry about today. Okay. Mr. Riley writes, the latest purported ransom notes sent to TMZ claiming to know who kidnapped Nancy Guthrie reveal a sick plot to continue to torment the missing grandmother's devastated family for a quick profit, according to a former FBI agent. The notes, which also claim to know where her body could be found, were sent just as Guthrie's daughter, Savannah Guthrie, made her emotional return to NBC's Today Show for the first time since her mom vanished more than 2 months ago. Quote, they sent these right when Savannah Guthrie went back to work. That was by no mistake. That was absolutely meant to further torment her and her family, Jennifer Coffindaffer told Newsweek. Continuing the quote, I think it speaks to the fact that there is at least someone out there that is still willing to torture this family by sending these continued communications with no proof of life, she added. Of course, then there's a recap. Since her disappearance, multiple purported ransom notes have been reported, including several sent to TMZ. The pair of notes received by the outlet on Monday, 3 days ago, were sent from the same anonymous person who nearly 2 months ago demanded 1 Bitcoin in exchange for information related to Guthrie's abduction. The first note claimed that Guthrie was dead, but the sender said that their offer to deliver the kidnappers on a silver platter for the cryptocurrency still stands. In a second note, they claim to have seen Guthrie alive with her captors in the Mexican state of Sonora, just across the border from Arizona. I don't know that it said just across the border from Arizona. Sonora does border Arizona, but it is a large state. It goes way down, way, way down into the southern reaches of North America. The person said they will surrender the information for half a Bitcoin, with another half transferred to their wallet when there is a public arrest. Coffindaffer believes they're lying about having any real information because they're shooting for a single Bitcoin valued at about $71,000 rather than the massive reward that's been offered by Guthrie's family and law enforcement agencies. Quote, the reason this makes sense to me that they don't have that knowledge is because they're not seeking the $1.2 million. Instead, they're trying to subvert it with this quickly paid, no hoops to jump through, just get the money. But I think that these people are scammers. So that got me to thinking, and we're going to keep Mrs. Guthrie's photo up here while I kind of go through what my research has revealed. My question was, why would somebody do this? Now, before I hop in, let me check in with you guys over here in the live chat. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify right now, thank you very much for following me on Spotify, man. That helps the channel so much. I can't even tell you. If you are on Spotify, please follow me over there. And of course, links are in the description and all over my socials. Okay. But thank you, thank you, thank you. Where have we got you guys coming in from? Christine Meadows is checking in from the Peach State. Just Jamie, good afternoon from Utah. We got the west coast of Florida, Erie, PA in the house, Salisbury, Tennessee, Florida. Bama Beth is here from Alabama, Jill from Minnesota, Fresno, California, Normie from Houston. Good evening from still freezing Old Dominion. I'm in a mood too. You and me both. Tuavivi, the land of poi and spam, is here. Sharon from Big Blue Heavenly Mountain is here. Western Kentucky, Indiana. Miss Chivos from Austin, Texas, South Carolina, near West Virginia, but in Pittsburgh. Hi from near Thoreau's Walden Pond. Good morning from Sour, France. Justice for Nancy. Thank you very much for being here, Deanne. I be far, far away in the land of cacti, says Sherry, Nevada. We've got Plainfield, Illinois. From the state of the Wright brothers, first flight. Glad to have you here. Southwest Missouri, Jersey Shore. So cool. I think Tuavivi, you might be my writer in our 3 questions. So that's pretty cool. Montana's in the house. Sherry says, Gavin, they need to release more info of the perp and a profile too. I think so. Patricia from the Berkshires in Western Mass. And Renee says, I'm sick of these TMZ notes. I am too. Dandelion-S, watching from a state of confusion. Thank you all for checking in from wherever you are. So glad. Patty, watching from beautiful northwestern Pennsylvania. You might be a writer tonight as well. A frequent correspondent. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's I just have notes scribbled. I've put them onto Acrobat so that I can follow kind of my line of thinking today. Okay? Again, the question is, what the devil, man? Why would somebody do this? So let's start with that question. And, the question being, why would someone send messages like this claiming to know what happened to Nancy Guthrie, sending them to media outlets, targeting a family that is already going through so much, just so much. They're just being piled on. Why would they do that? Because if the messages are not real, then someone is purposefully inserting themselves into the tragedy. And that is not cool, man. Not cool. So I started to do some research and I found a couple of things. The first one, that I wanted to, I'm actually going to read kind of what I jotted down. It's called The Theory of Moral Disengagement. And I don't know if this is interesting to you guys. Hopefully it is. It's interesting to me. I feel like I'm blowing out your ears. When I get excited, I scream. I need to stop doing that. It's it's fascinating to me. I hope it is to you. Okay, so Albert Bandura's theory of moral disengagement. It describes what he calls the cognitive psychosocial process by which individuals convince themselves that ethical standards do not apply to them in a particular context. It's really interesting because the human brain, deep down in our lizard brain, we are capable of rationalizing anything, right? And this moral disengagement is like the rationalization of, hey, ethics don't apply to me in this situation. And it allows a person to do super harmful things while at the same time maintaining their self-worth, which, I mean, most of us, we just would not send these kinds of letters to TMZ and other outlets to the Guthrie family because we would feel crappy about ourselves, man. We'd be like, I am the worst. I am worthless. We would not do that. But there are people that can. So this moral disengagement involves suspending self-condemnation through what Bandura said are 8 mechanisms that restructure harmful conduct, minimize responsibility, and distort consequences. And he grouped those or organized those 8 mechanisms into 4 stages or loci of self-regulation. The first one is the behavior locus. Second is the agency locus. Third is the outcome locus. And fourth is the victim locus. So basically, these 8 mechanisms are moral justification, right? They're saying, hey, these detrimental actions are serving as a worthy moral, social, or ideological cause. Hey, I'm broke. If I were not broke, I would be able to care for my family, and I would be able to make donations in the community, and I would be able to do all these wonderful things if I were not broke. Therefore, I can do this horrible thing, and I have now morally justified it. The next one, according to Bandura, is what he called euphemistic labeling. That is using sanitized language to make harmful behavior sound benign. For example, that's like in wartime calling civilian deaths collateral damage, right? We're gonna add a euphemistic label. Yeah, it's too bad when there's collateral damage. I didn't mean to do that. It's beyond well, I don't know what it's beyond. But it is something that happens, right? The third little mechanism he calls the advantageous comparison, comparing harmful acts to much worse acts, making the current behavior seem minor or positive. So like, yeah, okay, I'm reaching out to the Guthries and I'm asking for this Bitcoin, but it's not like I killed anyone, right? So again, rationalizing it through comparison to much worse things. Okay, that's all in the behavior locus. The next of the 4 loci is shifting responsibility or the agency locus, right? So the first mechanism is displacement of responsibility, viewing actions as stemming from the dictates of authorities rather than a personal choice. So like I was just following orders, and we could see this in this sort of, or we might, I'm not saying we have seen this, but I'm saying we could see this in a case like this where maybe there is a co-conspirator after the fact that found out what was happening and is now going, well, I didn't do it. They did it. But, you know, they now need me to send in these letters. So I'm just following their direction. That's what he's saying here. The next one is a diffusion. So the first was a displacement of responsibility. The next is a diffusion of responsibility, right? Diffusion meaning to spread out. So spreading responsibility among a group so no single individual feels responsible for the outcome. This is actually a mechanism in human behavior that you can see in like the DP by firing squad, for example, right? The old way of doing it where there are several people in a firing squad, say there are five, and only one of them has a live round. The rest of them have blanks. They all fire at the same time. One round hits the convicted, and then all five people have that uh, diffused responsibility. It probably wasn't me. It was all of us. We all did it, right? Okay, the next of the four loci is the outcome locus, ignoring or minimizing consequences, right? So a disregard or distortion of consequences, minimizing, ignoring, or disbelieving the harm caused by one actions. Oh, she was 84. She was a heart patient. She had a bad back. She could barely walk. I did her a favor. It's sick, but that's what that distortion or disregard of consequences. Oh, she was going to die anyway. Don't worry about it, right? And then the next of the four loci is blaming the victim. And there are two mechanisms in that one. One is dehumanization, so stripping the victims or the victim of like human qualities, right? Making it easier to mistreat. We see this in prisoners of war. Oh my goodness, if you want to see this on display, guys, listen. This isn't a tangent. This is germane to what we're talking about. But everybody alive today should make the trip to Munich, and then once in Munich, take the short ride out to Dachau and see Dachau. You could go to any concentration camp. It could be any one of them, but go to one of them. It is a master class in dehumanization. What happened in those concentration camps during the Holocaust in Germany. I have gone twice by myself to Dachau, and I've taken two of our older children there. Our oldest son couldn't last. We were in there 20 minutes, and he just begged to leave. So, yeah, it's within us to dehumanize victims, and of course, that is victim blaming. And then the attribution of blame, arguing that the victim brought the suffering on themselves. If she just would have come with us, if we didn't have to fight her, if, all that blood that was spilled didn't have to be done, it was her fault. That is an example of the attribution of blame. So Albert Bandura explains how people justify harm by saying moral disengagement enables individuals to engage in conduct that violates their own moral standards without feeling distress. So if someone sends emails saying, hey, I know where her body is, I know who did this, because of moral disengagement, they're not thinking, I'm potentially re-traumatizing this family. They're thinking, hey man, I'm just sending a message and I'm not forcing anyone to believe it. And I'm just putting that information out there. All they have to do is give me, I'm not even asking for the $1.2 million. I'm asking for $71,000. I'm just putting that information out there. And maybe, they should, but because they're disengaged morally, they're just not putting those things together. It's sick. So yeah, he also says the victim is stripped of human qualities or viewed in abstract terms. So, these would-be scammers, they're not thinking of the Guthries as the Guthrie family's victims. They're stripping them. Nancy's not the only victim here, right? The Guthrie family is. And with these scammers who have probably nothing to do with the actual crime of abducting Nancy, Their victims are the Guthries, right? Annie, Tommaso, Cameron, Savannah, all the grandkids. And but to these people, they're going, they're not a family. They're a case. They are a mark. They are a headline. They are an opportunity, and that's it. They have disassociated themselves from morality. Now, as I'm going through this stuff, I really hope that in the live chat you guys will put your comments so that I can see what you're thinking as well. I did see, I think I saw a super chat. I want to make sure that I bring that up. Um, Cheryl says, Gavin, these people are sick. If they really knew anything truthful about the case, they'd be $1.2 million richer. Checking in from Florida. I agree. And thank you, Cheryl, for starting us out with the super chat. Deeply appreciated. Guys are awesome. See if there's anything else that you guys wanted me to bring up. Any GFs in there? Internet Jury says, Gavin, who out there is obsessed with this case and also had a felony federal conviction for harassing a friend of the Guthries? In any other case, said person would be looked at closely. Yeah. Okay. See if there's Mary. This is humans are the cruelest creatures of all creatures. Um, yeah. Teresa says, I think the random notes are some Nigerian prince type, and that's exactly right. I mean, people who are scammers, they uh, they are disengaged morally, right, from their moral compass, or they're finding some way to justify it, as we just went through with Bandura's theory of moral disengagement. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to, as I was doing this research into what the devil, man, trying to answer this question, why would somebody do this? And Jennifer Coffendaffer is right. These people are sick, right? I found some literature by Delroy Paulus, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and Kevin Williams. And this theory is called the Dark Triad. I don't know if you guys have heard of this before. I hadn't heard of it, but it makes perfect sense to me. The Dark Triad is what they call three socially terrible, what do we want? Malevolent personality traits. They are. We talk about the first one on this channel and throughout True Crime a lot. Narcissism, right? This whole idea of superiority to others, to entitlement to things that they're not entitled to. The second of the dark triad is Machiavellianism, somebody who uses strategy to manipulate others. And then the third is psychopathy or psychopathy, however you want to pronounce it, which I would define as a lack of empathy, right? Somebody who cannot feel empathy, somebody who cannot feel remorse. And this dark triad, while independent, or these traits, while independent, they often overlap and drive exploitive behavior. And Paulus and Williams said that individuals with these traits account for about 7% of the population, according to their research, right? And they frequently utilize manipulation for self-interest. So they describe this dark triad as a tendency to exploit others for personal gain. So let's look at this behavior as we're thinking about why would somebody, like, let's answer the question, what the freaking devil, man? Why would somebody do this? Well, somebody is willing to insert themselves into a high-profile case. They're willing to claim that they have some sort of insider knowledge. They are willing to make demands. They are willing to make statements tied to those demands. And that is classic Machiavellian, narcissistic, calculated manipulation, right? So when we see these notes going, I am so hopeful. I am so hopeful that the FBI, we know of one arrest. You know what I need to do? I need to get my AI assistant just checking all of the US attorney's offices for announcements of arrests, because we only know of the one arrest so far of somebody who inserted themselves into the case. I'm sure there's so many more, right? And it's not chaos, guys. It's not people. It's not people going having a wild hair and saying, "Oh, I'm hey, I might be able to make $71,000 here." No, they know and understand exactly what they're doing. These narcissistic, Machiavellistic, psychotic people are willing, that is roughly, according to Paulus and Williams, about 7% of the human family. They are willing to manipulate and calculate and use strategy to get what it is that they want, or at least attempt to get what they want. Now, the third thing I found was um, this one actually, I actually think that we all probably understand this on some level. Those of us who like to tease people, and I'm this way with kiddos. I think it's delightful to just kind of tease the kids. And you get that kind of rush of joy by in my case, it's innocently just kind of teasing. Um, Trolls get that same kind of rush, right? And there's a certain segment of the population that get a certain satisfaction, which Paul Ekman described as duping delight. The delight that one gets out of duping another. Okay, so this is what I wrote down. Duping delight is a term coined by Paul Ekman, he's a psychologist, to describe the sense of pleasure or satisfaction some people experience when they successfully deceive others. Have you ever met somebody who's just a storyteller? It's just a storyteller, just likes to tell lies. I think most of us were that way as we were little and kind of like lost it as we grew up. But there are people who are grown adults that, man, they just love to successfully deceive others, and they will commit to the bit, man. They will not be broken. So in Ekman's research on basically it was research on lying and on facial expressions that he did. He observed that for certain individuals, the act of getting away with a lie, especially one that fools or manipulates someone, can produce a kind of emotional reward, um, or even like full-on excitement. And it's not always about money or outcome, but about the feeling of control, the feeling of superiority, the feeling of cleverness, um, that comes from pulling off a deception, which can make the behavior self-reinforcing, right? And sometimes habitual. So thinking about the sick person who might be sending these notes in, it might not be about the money at all. It might not be that they're trying to get rich off of this. It could just be that they get off on deceiving someone else. Something like that, right? Now, if we think about the messages that were sent to TMZ and other places, these messages were not sent privately, right? They were sent to the media outlets. They were sent very, very publicly. And so I think, I mean, this isn't in Ekman's research, but I think maybe if that person is just trying to deceive someone, just for the giggles of it, I think it probably amplifies it if they see that many people are deceived by their tale, by their lie. So, yeah. And maybe it's not just that they're trying to deceive all of us. Maybe they're like, ooh, the Guthries, it would be hilarious to deceive them into thinking that I know where Nancy Guthrie is. Whoa, you know, it's a very Snidely Whiplash. You know, got the mustache twirl. Like, it's just a level of evil that is just so bad, man. Just trying to convince this family, hey, I know where your mom is. And you know, uh, I don't want to besmirch anyone's beliefs. Um, but this is the very reason that I don't buy into mediums. I almost said media, but people who claim to be a medium to the great beyond. The reason that I personally don't buy into it, and there's several people that I love that do, and I respect their belief. I don't mean to besmirch it, but it's the reason that I don't buy into it is because I think that the incentive structure exists that that person is just really enjoying um, deceiving somebody else. Okay, so is duping delight from Paul Ekman something that applies here? Are they, trying to influence the family, trying to influence the narrative, trying to see if their claims will be reported in the media, trying to insert themselves into the story, and then when people believe it, getting this like rush of adrenaline or dopamine? Uh, yeah, I think it's possible. I do. I think it's possible. So those are the reasons why. Now, I want to get into selecting a target, but let's see what you guys are saying over in the over in the live chat here. Affordsable says Gavin. I was in another channel following this case, and I cannot tell you how many people keep saying that the family is involved. So ridiculous. Yeah, and I don't see it. I don't see it. And why put it out there? Is it just something that you get satisfaction about sharing your heartfelt belief, or are you trying to get that duping delight, right? Um, Same. Affordsable says they're saying Tommaso is involved. That really bothers me, and that Annie and Savannah knew. How sick is that? Yeah, it is. It is sick. Um, Hey, Mooney, thank you very much for gifting those memberships. You guys are awesome. Archangel says, love the psychology topic of today. Well, I'm glad because I'm angry about this today. I've really been feeling it today. Um, what have we got? From Second Beach Gal, thank you very much for the generous super chat. Usually at this point, it's a situation the state is covering up. Sorry, Long Island serial killer and Koberger are the same. These are not typical cases, just my opinion. Uh, well, you're certainly entitled to your opinion. I yeah, I don't think that there is a cover up here. I really don't. Now, having said that, there are such things as cover ups and conspiracies. That's why we have anti-conspiracy laws. But I don't think that there's a cover up here. Thank you very much for that. Faye Fantasy Production says, Gavin, what do you think the punishment should be for someone who's caught doing this? Oh, I think it should be severe. I mean, I'm not calling for somebody's head or anything. But yeah, I think it should be severe. I think prison time on a first offense. I think prison time. Maybe something like 3, 4, 5 years, something like that, for somebody who's caught doing this the first time. Do it again, double it. Do it again, double that. It should be severe. Yeah. Let's see. Archangel Marici says, I've been wondering if stalking has been going on in this case. Has Savannah or her mother had a stalker in the past? That hasn't been released. Information like that hasn't been released to my knowledge, but it would not surprise me. And the fact that law enforcement was asking for, video and stuff like that from neighbors from certain dates prior to I think January. Yeah, anyway, certain dates prior to her disappearing is an indication that there at least was casing, and perhaps stalking too. Mooney says, Gavin, they get off on other people's pain. Yep. Cabling says, cruel, devious, self-centered, I win, you lose. I don't think she was taken for gain unless it was family. Otherwise, it was just right. Gavin, the mustache twirl. Oh, I see. Yeah, it was just the mustache twirl. Could just be evilness. Yes, 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 indeed. Okay, great comments, guys. Thank you for those. Okay, let's transition to now that we kind of have gotten into why somebody might do this. The next question is, why target Nancy Guthrie, right? If you and why target her family? Because we're talking about two different crimes here. We're talking about the crime of the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, but really we're talking about the crime of torturing her family by sending these, what I think are fake messages. And what Savannah Guthrie has said, she thinks are mostly fake messages. Okay, so there is a theory called the routine activity theory. This is from Lawrence E. Cohen and Marcus Felsen. This theory explains that crime is not random, but occurs when three elements come together at the same time: a motivated offender, a suitable target, and the absence of a capable guardian. I thought that was interesting. Again, I mean, we're talking about two crimes, but for this conversation, we're talking about one crime, and that is, why are people torturing the Guthrie family? Okay, so they've got motivation, and we'll get into the motivation. They've got a target that is suitable to them, and they're vulnerable, right? They don't have a capable guardian protecting them. Okay, so the theory emphasizes that offenders actively select targets based on opportunity rather than impulse. A suitable target is typically someone who is accessible, vulnerable, or valuable in some way, while lack of guardianship means there's no immediate deterrent, such as law enforcement oversight or skepticism, right? A deterrent could be like a big, giant, muscular man armed with guns. It could also mean that if people, it could also mean skepticism. If I do this, people won't be skeptical, right? There's no guardian. Okay, so in this framework, these were my notes. Crime is less about the offender's background and more about the situation, meaning that when the right conditions align, the likelihood of victimization increases significantly, right? And this kind of goes to my theory. There's probably some psychology on this, that there are just some people that are criminally minded, and they're open to criminal behavior more so than others. This is probably a spectrum. It's probably not binary, right? But so the criminally minded are like, hey, wait a minute, wait. I've got an opportunity here. I've got a vulnerable person. Nobody's gonna protect them from me. I'm in, right? So in this case, the suitable target is a missing person, national attention, and a family actively seeking answers in the disappearance of their loved one, right? So in this high engagement environment, are those three elements, I guess, are those three elements, is there a high incentive, right? Motivated offender, There's definitely a suitable target here. There's definitely, I think that you could argue that the FBI is watching out for the Guthries, that the Pima County sheriffs are watching out for the Guthries, but so far it looks like they haven't made any further arrests. They haven't found out who these people are. So is there a guardian, right? In this super high engagement, um, environment. So yeah, from a criminal standpoint, this is the Guthrie family is a suitable target, according again to the research by Felsen and Cohen. All right. The other thing is, I guess, vulnerability. And there is a criminologist named Cassandra Cross who has done a whole bunch of research on fraud specifically. And so when we were talking just now about like selecting a target, Cassandra Cross talks about vulnerability targeting. Okay, so we could select these targets because of these three things, or according to Cassandra, maybe it's just that we've got a vulnerable target. We've got the Guthrie family here. They want answers. They're willing to pay. They've shown a willingness to pay, right? This could be fun, something like that. So, okay, criminologist Cassandra Cross has shown that fraud offenders don't typically choose victims at random, but instead engage in what can be described as vulnerability targeting, selecting individuals based on their likelihood to respond during moments of emotional or situational stress, right? And of course, for fraudsters in this case, we're moving away from the dopamine rush of just duping somebody, of deceiving somebody. We're talking about people who want something. They want that Bitcoin. They want that money, right? So in Cassandra Cross's research on fraud victimization, she found that victims are often targeted when they're experiencing some sort of disruption, isolation, heightened emotional need, making them more receptive to unsolicited contact or claims of help. By the way, if you are somebody who is elderly, you are part of a vulnerable group of people. Be on the lookout for this kind of stuff, right? So disruption, isolation, heightened emotional need. So Cross emphasizes that victims are not inherently gullible, but are accessible and responsive at a particular moment in time, meaning the success of the scam depends less on the victim's intelligence and more on timing and on context and emotional state. So this reframes the fraud as a process, of identifying and exploiting the right person at the right time when they're the most unsuspecting, the most vulnerable, the most easy time for them to be tricked, right? Now think about the Guthrie family. Their mom is gone. She has disappeared. They're wondering, is she alive? Is she dead? They're wondering, will the police find out this person? They definitely are feeling disruption. They may feel isolation. They probably do. They are vulnerable victims, right? So yeah, let me go through my notes here. They're waiting for answers. They're dealing with uncertainty. They're emotionally invested in any new information. So when a message that comes in that says, "Hey, I know what happened," that is somebody probing, or it could be somebody probing, hey, are they at their most vulnerable right now? And that's enough to really piss you off, right? PIST is what we become. Okay. I've got so much here. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I while it made me angry, it also helped me kind of deal through my anger today. All right. Moving on. Psychologist Robert B. Cialdini, best known for his work on persuasion, found that people often rely on mental shortcuts, also known as heuristics, when making decisions, especially under conditions of uncertainty or emotional stress. So again, we're framing this as what would-be criminals, fraudsters, trying to make a quick buck, even though they have nothing to do with the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. What would these fraudsters rely on heuristics, right? People being under conditions of emotional stress. Okay, so in his book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, Cialdini explains that when we are unsure, we don't look inside ourselves for answers, we look to others. And more broadly, we rely on quick, emotionally driven judgments rather than careful analysis. His research shows that heightened emotional states such as fear, urgency, or hope make individuals more susceptible to influence because they reduce the likelihood of slow, critical thinking. Right? Can't think slowly on this. We got to move along. And actually, I have to rephrase this. I don't know if that's a book or a paper, but it was called Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. So in these moments, people are more likely to respond automatically to cues like authority, scarcity, perceived insider knowledge, right? Think about these last couple of notes that TMZ reports on. I saw her with her kidnappers. I know where she is. I know that she is dead. I have this insider knowledge, and that knowledge is why and that's why emotionally charged situations are especially powerful contexts for manipulation and persuasion, right? Now, the claims that are being made here, she's dead, I saw her alive, I know where she is, that's fear, that's hope, that's back and forth, that's emotional swinging, and that could be designed. It's not accidental. It could be designed to keep the Guthrie family engaged, to keep them responding. So wrong all the way around. Let me check in to see what you guys are saying in the live chat, see if there's anything that you guys want me to see. Second Beach Gal says, with all due respect to my favorite show, it's gone on too long, and the new Hollywood seems to be long drawn out Hollywood personalities and social media like Blake and what's his name, the new Hollywood. Okay. Yeah. I have been watching the Baldoni Lively thing. Yeah. Mark my words, I'll keep you posted on numbers. Okay. All right. Let's see. Hey, Ron, thanks so much. Glad that you stopped by. It's always good to see you here. I'm a big fan. Sherry says, Duty Ron, good to know you support Gavin. I just found him. It's hard to know who to follow. I felt loved and received a gift membership on the second video I turned on. Well, that was probably Mooney. It could have been others. You guys are so generous with one another. Maybell says, also mental health of both victim and suspect. Indeed. Yeah, Mooney, it was good to see Ron. I love Ron's channel. Love Ron's channel. Okie dokie. All right, the next thing. Language analysis. Criminologists Michael Levi and Russell G. Smith have shown that the language used in fraud is carefully constructed to create credibility and compliance. In their research on deception and financial crime, they note that offenders often present themselves as having access to privileged or insider information, which we already talked about a little bit, in order to establish authority and lower skepticism. As they explain, fraudsters seek to gain the trust of victims by presenting information in a manner that appears credible, authoritative, and urgent, often using confident, definitive statements rather than tentative or uncertain language. This kind of wording, statements that sound absolute, exclusive, or time sensitive, is designed to override doubt, prompt action, It's designed, guys. It's designed. In practice, phrases that imply certainty or unique knowledge aren't just descriptive, they're strategic, functioning as tools of persuasion meant to make the recipient feel that they're being given access to something important that others don't have. So, when someone writes, I know where her body is, I know who her kidnappers are or her kidnapper is, that is not just casual wording. That is authoritative language, and it's designed to defraud the victim here, right? Okay, and then not the last thing, maybe the last. Well, there's a couple more things. I did some research on contradictions, right? Okay, so in the last two letters, she's dead in one, she's alive in another, and there's a psychologist. His name was Leon Festinger. He developed what's known as cognitive dissonance theory, right? He found that when people are confronted with conflicting information, they don't always reject it. Instead, they often try to resolve that inconsistency internally. Festinger wrote, that the existence of dissonance leads to efforts to reduce the dissonance, meaning people are actually motivated to make sense of the contradictions rather than walk away from them. In emotionally charged situations, this effect can be even stronger. Rather than dismissing conflicting claims, such as one message saying a person is alive and another saying they're dead, individuals may become more engaged, trying to determine which version is true. This process can deepen involvement rather than reduce it because the mind seeks resolution. We talk about dissonance in music a lot. You guys know that I love music and I love the construction of music. Um, we talk about dissonance a lot in music when we're constructing chord progressions, for example, right? There are chords that are called suspended chords, and these chords use mathematically connected notes to the fundamental note. They're still mathematically corrected, but they're not as um, they're not as resolving. They don't feel resolved, so it leaves you in a state of suspense. That's why they call them suspended chords, right? And it requires that that you like if you go into a suspended chord, it requires that you go back to, if you're in a major scale, let's say the major fundamental chord. And what that does is it gives the listener a sense of resolution that just feels good. And when I read this cognitive dissonance theory by Festinger, that's kind of what I went to. I was like, oh, they're offering dissonance to their victims, in this case, the Guthries, who then go through the process of finding the resolution for themselves. It's like going from that chord that just leaves you suspended to finally back to, oh, I feel okay. Feel okay now, right? This is actually one of the reasons that I love the Beatles so much, by the way. Rock and roll music is actually built very easily, and I know this is a bit of a tangent. It's built very simply. But man, the Beatles did a good job of using those suspended chords to just, I don't know, to just bring us back. And it just feels like you're embraced in a warm blanket, right? And I think that's what some fraudsters could be counting on with the Guthries, right? Okay, so enough of that. The last thing, this is kind of getting into my conclusion from what I kind of prepared. It's talking about the real world harm. Okay. So there's a criminologist, his name's Mark Button. He has studied real world impacts of fraud extensively and the harm that goes well beyond the financial loss. Say the Guthries paid a Bitcoin. Then they're out 71 grand or whatever Bitcoin is worth right now, right? But the harm, at least according to Button and according to like my own common sense, goes way beyond that. So Button, in his research on fraud victimization, found that many victims experience significant emotional and psychological consequences, noting that the impact of fraud can be as severe as that experienced by victims of more conventional crimes. Victims frequently report anxiety, depression, loss of confidence, a diminished ability to trust others, effects that can persist long after the incident itself. In some cases, the emotional toll is compounded by feelings of shame or self blame, which can discourage victims from speaking out or seeking help. Button's work, it highlights that fraud is not a victimless crime, right? Again, remember in the beginning, we were talking about that moral disengagement, right? Moral disengagement, you're just disengaged from any morality, any moral compass, any line of ethics. You a person may convince themselves, oh, there's no real victim here. They're rich. I can just get a little money out of them now, and there's no harm, no foul, right? But that's not what Button said, right? Fraud is not a victimless crime. It produces real and lasting harm, particularly when it targets individuals who are already vulnerable or in distress. It's not just annoying. It's not just misleading. It reopens wounds. It creates confusion. It prolongs uncertainty for a family that's already dealing with deep and lasting trauma. So, I guess when we look at everything that we just went through, my rabbit hole of reading papers and trying to find resolution to the feelings that I was feeling, the feelings of angers that I was feeling today. Here are a couple things that I came to. First, the messages that are being sent are not random. They are designed. They fit exactly into what we know of criminology and psychology. That they are that there is someone out there or multiple people out there willing to manipulate. They're able to justify the harm that they're making. They might enjoy what it is that they're doing, that deception, right? The duping, um, you know, what was it called? The duping, duping delight, right? Getting that delight out of duping somebody. Um, they're able to identify a high emotion, high visibility case and insert themselves into it. And I guess that's why this is so infuriating, even to those of us who are spectators along the periphery, who care about this woman. We have never met her, but she is a victim and we care about her. And we care about her children and her grandchildren and her neighbors, the people that go to church with her friends, people who've known her for 50, 60, 70 years, right? It hits us hard. It hits us hard because not only do we recognize that they're being scammed, and that's just, oh, it's enough to make you pissed. We also know this is a real family in real crisis, and somebody's using that as leverage, and it is infuriating. Infuriating. That was a long, kind of a tantrum for me. But let's see what you guys are saying over in the live chat before we move on. Cabling, frauds are frauds. YouTubers, not you, Gavin, but some like TMZ make me ponder their credibility. Yeah, I try really hard to not be just a gossip site, right? We want to learn from this stuff. And we want to help when we can. You know, when I started on YouTube, it was with my friend Rick, and our channel was called Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin. We came into this wanting to help solve crimes. And in this case, by keeping this case alive, keeping her picture out there, hopefully somebody will see this and will say, I can't participate in this anymore, and will do the right thing. So I'm hoping that we're learning something. I'm hoping that we're helping somehow. Let's see. Phoenix Rising saying, good to see you, Phoenix. I've gotten to the thought that the notes to TMZ claiming to have information could also be to make the Guthries look bad. They have money, but they won't risk half a Bitcoin for the info. That's an interesting take. Hope G says, my dad was a victim of fraud this weekend. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Some guys said they were from the city and had just paved the highway. They offered to use their leftover tar to pave his driveway. For a big discount, they charged 10 times the amount. Wow. Cabling, there's no moral conviction anymore. In some people, there just isn't. Yeah, there just isn't. Okie dokie. There is an article that I want to bring to you guys to just kind of close out this conversation about Nancy Guthrie before we move on. Okay. This from page 6, written by Teresa Roca. And this came out yesterday. Again, we just don't know what's going on, but the headline reads, why walls are closing in on Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper after Savannah's today return. Okay, the walls are closing in on Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper after Savannah Guthrie's return to today, as her national platform will help keep all eyes on the case, according to an FBI expert. I hope that's true. Quote, every day that passes, the pressure builds. Keeping a secret like this is exhausting, and that gets harder with every morning that Savannah Guthrie sits behind that anchor desk, former FBI agent Jason Pack exclusively told Page 6. Continuing the quote, most criminals in cases like this count on the media moving on. They count on the family fading from public view. They count on people forgetting. This case is different. Savannah has a national platform, and she shows up on it every single day. Every time a viewer sees her face, they think about her mother. Close quote. Pack believes the more attention the case receives, the more pressure on the people responsible goes up. After reading this, that is why I decided to just go ahead with my diatribe today. Quote, add a reward of more than $1 million and the full weight of FBI resources, and you have a situation where the walls are not just closing, but they are closing from every direction at once, he said. Pack went on to urge Nancy's neighbors to check their cameras and contact authorities with any information on her disappearance. Quote, at some point, someone is going to have the courage to make that call, he said. One phone call from someone who decides the reward money matters more than their silence is all it takes to bring law enforcement directly to their front door. And it goes on, and there's a link to the article in the description below. You can check that out. So that is why, guys, I'm staying on the Nancy Guthrie case. Will continue to stay on the Nancy Guthrie case until there's resolution to this case. And I hope that you guys will join me in that quest as well. With that, let's move on to 3 questions, shall we?
It's 3 questions with Gavin Fish.
Okie dokie. In this segment, guys, I answer 3 of your questions. I answer them in the order that I feel like I should answer them. And 2 of the 3 that I'm answering today came in like yesterday. So I just thought they were great questions. But I solemnly promise that I will do my best to answer every question that comes in. I will do so completely without dodging anything. And we'll do it to the best of my ability. All you have to do is send them to 3questions@gavinfish.com. It's spelled out THREE questions@gavinfish.com. You can send multiple questions at once, or you can send them one at a time, whatever you want to do. Question number 1 tonight comes from Diane G. Diane asks, hey, Gavin, since you fly airplanes, how would you weigh a plane without scales? That is a terrific question. Let me tell you how it works, okay? Every plane has things that you know about it because of its certification, including what it weighs, what its useful load is, what its payload is, and things like that. Because it is a constant weight, how much fuel weighs. How much fuel you have in the tanks because you measure those things. And you should know your own weight, your passenger weight, and anything that you're taking along, all of those things. And you need to make sure that it stays under a threshold, which is published for every certified plane. And, I actually got up to a point where I could not take, say, like 3 of my kids in a plane at one time because I was too fat, right? So I didn't have scales, but for the plane itself, but I knew the weight of the plane. I knew what it was capable of doing. I knew how much fuel I was putting into the tanks. I knew what was left over for passengers and luggage. That's how that works. Same thing happens on a commercial plane, by the way. They don't have scales on the ground weighing the plane. What they do is they know what the plane weighs. They know, what really happens on a commercial flight is the useful load for a plane is well beyond anything that you can pack into it. Uh, not so much, not as much with cargo planes. They have to be way more careful that way, as I understand it. But yeah, that's how that works in, I guess, layman's terms. Great question. And I do love to fly planes. Okay, Mel. Mel sent in several questions, and I chose one today, but we need to know, just for context, that Mel is chiming in from beautiful New Zealand. She asks, are you familiar with our beautiful culture? She's talking about her Maori culture. And have you had the privilege of watching an All Blacks game or a haka? Mel, I love this question. First of all, I am surface level familiar with the Maori culture, not deeply, right? But you mentioned in your email that you are married to a Tongan, a man from Tonga. My baby sister, we're not babies anymore, we're all old people. She is married to a man from Tonga, and they have beautiful Tongan children. One of which is is the team captain of a D1 rugby team who has some real talent and is on a very, very, very good team. And so I have gotten to know rugby through his rugby pursuits. Now, my brother-in-law has been playing rugby since long before I've known him. I just never went and watched him. And then when it comes to haka, uh, my sister and brother-in-law's kids all played football in Northern California before they grew up and graduated and stuff like that. And they would lead their teams in hakas before the game. It was beautiful how the teams embraced that beautiful heritage. It was awesome. I have never watched a complete All Blacks game, but I've seen so many hakas, so many clips, and it. I only didn't watch the games because I didn't understand the game. It's just but sitting on the sidelines watching my nephew's team play and sitting next to my sister and my other nephews and my niece and them and my brother-in-law telling me what's going on. Oh, it's actually not that complicated of a game to understand as a spectator and is fun to watch. So yeah, and I could talk about them all night long because I love them so much. They are a terrific family that embrace their Tongan culture. It is beautiful. And my brother-in-law has stories, man. So great. So great. Okay, was that question? That was question number 2. Question number 3. This is probably a good question for y'all to answer in the live chat. What is your favorite footwear? Are you a loafers, sneakers, sandals, or flip flops kind of guy? Patty, I am neither a sandals nor a flip flops kind of guy. I think flip flops are my least favorite footwear for me personally to wear. I got ugly feet. And I don't like the flap, 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 and the feeling of having to like keep shoes on my feet. Why do I have to have effort to keep shoes on my feet? It's so dumb. So no, I don't like flip-flops. I don't like sandals just because I like humanity. I don't want to expose them to my disgusting feet. I mostly wear sneakers. Now, when it comes to formal footwear, I'm a fan of the humble Oxford. I just love the Oxford. I've got a couple pairs of plain toe black Oxfords. I've got a cap toe pair of brown Oxfords. I've got a black pair of wingtip brogued Oxfords. I love those. Um, for sneakers, I always stick with the same brand. I always keep a couple pair. I'm an Asics guy. I have never once owned a pair of loafers, but I am kind of starting to get drawn to the idea of maybe having a classic pair of horsebit loafers. Um, and my son tells me that if I am to add a pair or two of loafers, like a penny loafer, a horsebit loafer, something like that, to my shoe collection, then my metamorphosis into my father will be complete. My dad's all about the loafer. He is all about the loafer. We've been having that conversation in our home. So thanks for bringing that up. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Is this controversial? Are my thoughts on the flip flop and the sandal a controversial take? We'll take your calls. No, we won't take your calls, but we will take your comments. Definitely leave those. That would be fun for me to read. Guys, those are your three questions. Remember to send your questions to 3questions@gavinfish.com. And now, while you are telling me your thoughts on my answers to three questions and your answers to the same questions, let's get into some headlines.
True crime headlines.
Okie dokie, friends o' mine. First headline is just a reminder that Amy Hilliard is still missing. Okay. There's a link down in the description below to a website called Bring Amy Home that that the family and friends are using to update us. But as of right before we started the show, Amy Hilliard is still missing. She is considered at risk due to a medical condition. We don't know what that medical condition is, but she was last seen on March 25th near her home on the 500 block of Radnor Road in Oakland. She was wearing a white short-sleeved shirt, light jeans, white sneakers with black stripes. She is 52 years old. She is 5'4" tall, 120 pounds. Blonde hair, hazel eyes, and if you have seen her, please call Oakland PD at 510-238-3641 or call 510-591-4857. Let's bring Amy home. Okay, next headline is from the IB Times. I found this to be an interesting article. There's no real update on the case, but I think it's an interesting article from a couple days ago, written by Nobel Barines. At least I think that's how you pronounce the name. How David's cooperative facade crumbled under the weight of a California grand jury. And I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but a little bit. The investigation into the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Let me find. There we are. Let's find a picture of Celeste. Has increasingly centered on the work of a California grand jury as prosecutors pursue a complex and highly secretive legal strategy in the case involving musician David. What began as a missing persons report has evolved into a closely watched criminal probe, now unfolding largely out of sight but with potential career ending and life altering consequences for those involved. Authorities convened a Los Angeles County grand jury in late 2025 marking a significant turning point in the probe. Unlike a traditional public court process, the grand jury operates behind closed doors, allowing prosecutors to present evidence, question witnesses, and determine whether there's enough probable cause to file criminal charges. Then, of course, it gives a case drew national attention because of, and it summarizes the case. From the outset, prosecutors opted to use a grand jury rather than immediately filing charges, a move often reserved for complex or high profile cases. Legal experts say this approach allows investigators to gather testimony discreetly while protecting sensitive evidence. In this case, the proceedings have been described as unusually secretive. I don't know if that's fair, with authorities keeping the case close to the vest as they build their argument. Court filings later revealed that David, whose legal name is David Anthony Burke, had been formally identified as a target of the grand jury investigation. This designation indicates that prosecutors believe there is substantial evidence linking him to potential criminal activity, though it does not equate to a charge. So, yeah, then it goes into who have been witnesses to the grand jury, including friends of his. Yeah, so there's a link to the rest of this, but I'm hoping that. Oh yeah, does it really get into his crumbling? It doesn't. The article really doesn't, but yeah, his facade of being cooperative crumbled right from the beginning, I think. All right, from the Daily Mail, this about Rex Heuermann, and this is a long article. I just highlighted a bit of it because we talked about his guilty plea yesterday. This is written by Rachel Sharp, Ruth Bashinsky in the dailymail.co.uk. Headline reads, "Every chilling moment inside the Gilgo Beach serial killer hearing with justice finally served. Our front row account of his cold courtroom confession, the family's raw emotion, and the word that stunned the room." I just want to scroll down, and again, there's a link in the description below. Let me read this. I'm going to start above where I highlighted. At one point, the corners of his mouth curled up in what appeared to be a faint flicker of a smirk as he uttered the words guilty. Even after working on countless shocking criminal cases, nothing could prepare us for how disturbing that expression felt. Then came a moment that sent chills through the room as we learned for the very first time how each of the women died. One by one, Heuermann answered in a calm, matter-of-fact tone. Strangulation, 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 strangulation. Ringing heavy in the room, he reduced the lives of these young women, mothers, sisters, daughters, to one callous word. Inside the courtroom, what struck us was there was no glimmer of remorse, the answers uttered with no more emotion than if he was ordering a coffee. It was sickening to see, though perhaps we shouldn't have been surprised. The cutting words later used by law enforcement members to describe him, monster, soulless, callous, and sadistic, didn't seem powerful enough. All around the room, the victims' loved ones silently sobbed, dabbed tissues to their eyes, and clutched each other for comfort, while others, so overcome with pain and grief, were unable to even look at the man and murderer in front of them. At the very back of the courtroom, Heuermann's family looked destroyed. And I'm not going to get into the family there, but an interesting article indeed. I invite you to read that. Now, guys, we're trying this on for a second time. Let's do some positive news. Okay, it has nothing to do with crime. We've been kind of talking about heavy, weighty, ponderous stuff for the last almost hour and a half. How about some good news? How about some really, really good news? This from a website called Positive News. Bright Idea shines hope on struggling pollinators, written by Robin Evely. Red light therapy can help bee colonies to live longer and pollinate more effectively, studies claim. Tell me more. Because I've kind of thought that red light therapy is kind of a fad, but okay. Red light therapy has long been used by humans to improve skin health, slow signs of aging, and soothe sore muscles. Now the treatment is giving a glow up to one of our most vital pollinators, the bees. It works by stimulating the mitochondria, the powerhouses of living cells, boosting efficiency and catalyzing tissue regeneration. The brains behind Bee Futures, an agritech outfit based in France and Norway, claims studies show bees enjoy the same benefits when exposed to red and near infrared light. Colonies given the red light treatment were better able to cope with stressors like heat, extreme weather, and pesticides than those without, living longer and pollinating more effectively, the company said. The company has since launched Onibi Light, a world first in-hive therapy light for bees developed in partnership with the University College London. Okay, man, so it's a sales pitch. Dang it. Oh, dang it. I got duped. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it's true. Blah, 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 blah. Trials by UCL showed that colonies exposed to pesticides or transport stress got back to being busy bees within days when supported by the red light gadget. Okay. Well, I do feel a little duped there, but maybe it's true. Could be true. Maybe I need to stop being so skeptical or cynical and just be happy that our world's pollinators might be responding to something awesome. Now, before we go, I would like to know what you guys are saying over in the live chat. K Bling says, "Thank you, Gavin. You are the real deal." Well, thank you very much. That makes me feel good. Sherry, Nevada. Gavin, are you a pilot? That is awesome. Yes, and I forget sometimes that I've got new viewers. Yeah, I am a private pilot. I'm not a commercial pilot. I am a private pilot, and I've been flying for about 26 years now. I think I was first certificated in 2000. It may have been 2001 though. I think it was 2000. So 25, 26 years. Christine, Gavin, is there anything you can't do? I don't want you to be fooled by my superficial knowledge of a wide area, or wide amount of topics. Okay, there are a few things that I'm good at. Okay, a few things that I'm very good at, and then many things that interest me that I have very superficial knowledge of, and it puts out this impression that I'm just like this overachieving guy that can do anything. And nothing could be further from the truth. I'm a normal person who just has lots of different interests and likes to read and gets to know different things. Let's see. Thank you. But thank you. That did help my ego. MRG is GF for girlfriend. No, it is neither for girlfriend nor gluten-free. It is for Gavin Fish. That's funny. Sherry says, I love the 3 questions. You know what? My thing gets stuck sometimes. My live chat overlay gets stuck sometimes, and I can't get it to change. But Sherry does like the 3 questions, and now it is completely not working at all. Autumn, I saw that you have a little, is it an anniversary for being a member? But now I can't see it because my system went le pew. But thank you for your continued awesomeness. Autumn is my lead moderator, guys. And if I could just encourage you, please, to head over to my website, gavinfish.com. I love you guys that stay to the end. Go to gavinfish.com, click on the support me tab, and when it finally loads, yes, I do need to address the load speed of my website. When it finally loads, maybe my problem is that I'm having internet connectivity issues. Maybe that is it. Please? Hopefully. Let's see if this works. Nope, it doesn't. Anyway, there is a button on the website where you can buy Autumn a coffee, and I'm sure that Autumn has shared it in the live chat as well. And then if you click on this little fishy icon, that will take you over to the fish tank where we hang out on Facebook. You're always, always, always invited, though never any pressure. If it's your thing, come join us in the tank on Facebook. There's a link in the description too. All right. Thank you all for your kind support, your super chats today. Thank you to my patrons, to my members. Thank you to those who are listening on Spotify. That helps the channel a whole bunch. And thank you for watching, for liking, for commenting, and sharing. You guys are the best. I will be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right here in this very same place to talk live on YouTube, then uploading it to Spotify afterwards. And until then, well, I hope to see you there. And until then, I bid you adieu. Thank you very much for being here. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.